Hey there, Facebook friends. It's Justine Laser. It is Tuesday night, and I am coming to you live for what I have started calling Transformation Tuesday. So, what I'm going to be talking to you about again is my Enneagram stuff, which I've been getting a ton of questions about, and how it transforms lives. And so, I've been going really, really slow and really, really basic because, as I've told you before, on the surface, the Enneagram seems really simple. And then as you dig deeper and you go down that rabbit hole, you start to realize that it is anything but simple. There's so many nuances and there's so many little ways that you can go. But it's super, super interesting whether you go way down the rabbit hole or whether you, stay real simple. So I want to kind of keep things as simple as possible, especially on my Facebook wall. But I wanted to talk to you guys about finding your type. And the only way to find your type is to know what your core motivation is. And while that sounds super, super simple, it's not nearly as simple as what it seems. So let's jump in really quick. Feel free to share this with somebody who, loves the Enneagram or, maybe could use a little bit of introspection, et cetera, et cetera. So, as I've said before, the Enneagram is a personal tool that's oriented around 9 core types or 9 core motivations. And just because you know what your Enneagram type or motivation is doesn't put you in a box, because there's billions of people in the world. And if there's only 9 types, that would indicate that there's only 9 different ways of being, and that's not the case at all. So I don't want people to think that what I'm telling you is that there's only 9 different types of people, because again, it is so much more complicated than just 9 types. When we kind of word it that way, we're giving you Enneagram 101, we're giving you kindergarten Enneagram or preschool Enneagram, really. And so it's really, really, really basic. So what makes the Enneagram different than other personality typing systems, like the DISC or Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders or any of the other ones? So what's not talked about a lot with the Enneagram is that, again, it's all based on core motivations. So it's based motivation, meaning why you do the things you do. Other personality typing systems are going to give you the behavior. You do this. Okay, great. I do this. I can admit I do this, or I act this way, or this is my pattern. Okay, cool. But why? If you don't get to the root of why it is that you're doing what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you know. We all know when we're being an idiot, right? Well, I shouldn't say we all know. A lot of us know when we're being an idiot. We step back a little bit later on and we're like, man, I was not nice there. Or, man, I was way too nice there. We know what we do. I was a doormat there. The question is, why were you a doormat there? I came on way too strong. Why did you come on way too strong? The Enneagram gets to the why, okay? It not only tells you how you interact with people, it tells you why you interact the way that you do with people. It helps you to kind of move through life, and it tells you why you move through life the way you do. So, because the fact of the matter is, animals all do the same thing. They eat, they sleep, they go to the bathroom, and they find shelter, and if they're a pet, they may cuddle with you. There's not a lot of reasons why they do those things. They eat, they sleep, they have to eat to live. They sleep because they're tired. It's really easy with animals. We do a lot of the same things. As humans, we do a lot of the same things as other humans do. But the difference is why we do the things that we do. And that's what makes us all so unique, right? And when I say we all do the same things, we do the same things as animals. We eat, we drink, we go to the bathroom, we find shelter, we look for comfort, but we do so many other things that other animal species don't do. But the fact of the matter is, 99.9% of humans all do the same things. But the difference is why we do the same things. So, and the fact of the matter is, those things that we do, we fight, or we stand up for people, or we're passionate, or we're obnoxious, or, we're happy, but why? And we're not even conscious of the whys. And that's what the Enneagram is about, is helping us to be more conscious of why we do what we do so that we can stop doing the unhealthy things that we do, or at least be more aware of them and do less of them. Okay? So we want to find the core motivation. So there's a couple of different ways to do the core motivation. Oh, and let me just say this, because I talked about this last time, but since then I made a purchase on the Amazon, right? So I talked last week about how the 9 types are the 9 different core motivations. Some people say it's 9 buckets, so it's 9 different ways of seeing things. Some people call it 9 different lenses. And I talked about how if you put on a different colored lens, you would see the world differently. So I bought some lenses, okay? I bought some sunglasses. So like rose-colored glasses, right? So when I put these on, my ring light is pink, and everything in my room has a pink hue to it. So if I wore these throughout life, everything I saw would have that pink hue to what I saw, which is not the way it is, but it's the way I see it, right? If I put on these green lenses, these are actually kind of cool. If I put on these green lenses, my ring light is green. Everything in this room has a green tint to it. Nothing in this room is green, but everything looks greenish. Look at the light in my thing. Everything looks greenish. So what I'm seeing is not the way it is, it's the way I see it, okay? And so that's how the Enneagram is. There are 9 different ways of seeing the world. Now, within those 9 ways, there's lots of other things, right? Again, we're doing basic Enneagram. But there's 9 basic ways that we see the world. And that's the different types, okay? So how do you find your type? Well, or your motivation, which is based on your type. So one of the first things that you have to do is you have to get really introspective. So I know a lot of people, like, they go and they're going to Google, oh, I'm going to take an Enneagram test. Okay, cool. Guess what? Again, you're scratching the surface. And I'm not opposed to Enneagram tests. I think Enneagram tests should be done in concordance with either a coach or a lot of research, because that motivation is not as simple as what it seems. And I'm going to go a step further and say it's so not simple that 3 years into the process, I'm pretty sure I know what number I am. But I just had a coaching call with somebody, and she does not think I'm the number that I always thought I was. So try that one on for size, okay? So it's just not that simple. So I would suggest a lot of self-observation, a lot of self-introspection, self-reflection, self-discovery. And one of the number 1 ways you can do this, and nobody's going to want to hear it, is doing some journaling. Like thinking about why you do the things you do. I want you to think of some of your patterns. Like, what are some of the patterns in your relationships? Your patterns, like maybe you only lasted a job for a year or 2, because after a year or 2, when you just cannot stand to be with those people, but it happens all the time. That's a pattern. Maybe you fight with your spouse over the dirty dishes every single day. That's a pattern. Maybe you nag your kids about the same things every day. That's a pattern. Why do you have that pattern? Is it because you feel disrespected? Is it because you think that there should never be a dirty dish in the sink because that's the way you were raised? Do you quit your job because that's what you saw growing up, or because you actually hate people? Like, what is it? There's a big why there, and it's a subconscious why. You're probably blaming it on one thing. You know, everybody's an idiot. My kids are pigs. You know, whatever. You're blaming it on something, but there's something much deeper than that. And so that's why we're getting down to those motivations. And so I want to say one last thing before I move on to something. There's a little bit, because I was talking about typing yourself, but there's a little bit of every number in each person. So you might say, well, I see the perfectionist. I'm definitely a helper. I love to achieve. Like, there's every number is in every person, but one number always stands out. One number is always the strongest. Okay. Another question that I get is, can your type change? And the answer is no. No, it does not change. It can't change. So some experts believe that you're born with your type. Some experts believe that by the time you're like 3 to 5, your type has been set based on the way you were born and then your experiences early in your life. But you might say, but Justine, I changed, and so did I. So life experiences can change you. So you may shift into one of your wings a little bit more. So for example, if you're a type 3, you're an achiever, and you become a mom or a dad, especially a mom, like for the first time, you may find yourself like kind of floating further into the type 2, the nurturer, more as a mother than what you did when you were focused on your career. Okay. If you are an 8 and you're at college and you join a sorority or fraternity, you may lean into that 7 wing really hard during those years. Like when you're out having fun and you're the life of the party, like you might lean into that like really, really hard, right? When you live with your parents, if you're a 2, you may lean really hard into the type 1, being perfect and being good and, all that stuff, because maybe your parents are really, really strict or really expect things a certain way. So during different periods of time in your life, you can lean into different parts. You can also, different wings. You can also lean a little bit further into subtypes. Again, I'm not getting into wings and subtypes today because that's very, very, it's much more in depth than what we're doing today. But as we get older, we tend to become more balanced. And the other thing too is, if you think about this, as if you're somebody who has been into personal development, you're self-developing, you're reading books, you're listening to podcasts, like you're trying to get better and better and better as yourself. You're trying to better yourself and be the best version of yourself that you can be. You're becoming a healthier version of yourself. So every number has a healthy side, and then it has an unhealthy side, and then it just has your average side. Most of us are probably living around the average to unhealthy side most of the time. So the idea behind recognizing your patterns and recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses is to move from unhealthy to average, from average to healthy. Okay, so that's really important too. And then another thing is, if like you really, really cannot land on a type, like you've done it all. You've taken a test, you've read, you've done podcasts, you've put time into it, like you've done it all. You hire a coach, and you can't land on one. Well, you can do one of two things. You can try a type on. So what I mean by that is, like, you're probably between 2 or 3. Like, nobody thinks that they're all of them. So you're probably between 2 and 3. And so take a type. Like, let's say you're like, I'm between, 3, 6, 9. I'm gonna try wearing type 3 for the next week or 2. And just like really read about the type 3, listen to some podcasts that are just based on type 3, and just feel it and see how it feels on. Like, I'm a type 3. How does that feel? And you're like, man, no, that is not me. Then go to your 6 and try that one on. And then if that one doesn't fit, then go to the 9. And trying it on for a week or 2, almost like you're trying on like a pair of shoes or something, can really work. And then the other thing is that, give me 1 second here. Some experts actually believe that if you have a really, really hard time finding a type, you very well may be a 6 or a 9. Because those are the 2 types that are the hardest to type. They've repressed feelings. And so you might have repressed so much that you can't even recognize yourself. And so you very well may be a type 6 or a 9. So that's really, really interesting. And then another thing that I think is really interesting is that if you think about yourself from ages 18 to 25, you're almost at your most pure form there. You're usually not living at home. So you're not like a little kid, being told what to do by your parents. You generally don't have a lot of responsibilities. I know everybody has, there's always somebody who does, but most people between 18 and 25, that is their time in their life when they have the least amount of responsibilities. Like, they don't have the pressure from being in high school and their parents on them all the time. They might be in college and having a great time. They probably don't have children or a lot of children. They probably are, in today's age, not married, probably don't have a mortgage, like all that stuff. So you're probably at your like purest form of who you truly are, where you can be really selfish about you, is between the ages of 18 and 25. Those are some good years for me. I liked 18 to 25, I'm not gonna lie. All right. So it's really, really hard to capture your motivation easily. And it's like a whole self-discovery process. A self-discovery tool, like a test, is not self-discovery. Self-discovery is work. A tool is a tool. Work is work. Self-discovery is work. If you really want to find out your Enneagram number, it is not as easy as 1, 2, 3. Okay. And another thing is, if you're reading all of like all the stuff about the types, and you're reading the weaknesses of a number, and you're like, ew, that's gross. Like, I'm so glad I'm not one of those. You might be one of those, because we tend to hate the thing that we are, but we don't even know that we're it. Isn't that crazy? Huh? It's really crazy. Anyway, so I'm just going to go over really quickly the core motivations. I was going to do more, but I wanted to keep this a little bit shorter. The core motivations of each number, just so it's here. But this is like 2 words about the core motivations. There's so much more, but we can only do so much in a video. So the ones are reformers. Their core motivation is being good and being right. The 2 is they're your nurturers, and their core motivation is being loved and being wanted. 3's motivation, they're the performers, they're the achievers. Their core motivation is being valuable and being admired. Oh, hey Gina, how are you? The 4's, their core motivation is being authentic. They want to be themselves. They actually like being unique. 5's, being competent and being capable. 6's, being secure and being supported. 7's, being satisfied or content. 8's, being independent and protecting themselves. And 9, being at peace, being peaceful, and being harmonious, or creating a harmonious atmosphere. So listen to those, think about that. That's just, again, scratching the surface. So you want to find out your core motivation. You want to find out your type. So here are some really tangible things that you can do if that's what you're interested in. So number 1, you can go to my website, JustineLaser.com, and the pop-up window is going to give you the opportunity to fill in your email address, and you can have a free typing guide sent to you. Okay, so that's number 1, and it's a really great guide. It's very simple. It's a great start. Okay, number 2 would be grabbing some books. I mean, here's one of my favorites because it's the most simple, and it's because it's the Enneagram Made Simple. It's the Enneagram Made Simple by Ashton Whitmoyer Ober. I like this as a tool because it's so simple. I mean, I have lots of books here. I mean, I'm going to tell you, I got some books here that are not so simple. I mean, I got some that are like, ooh, I mean, this is not simple, but I'm about halfway through with this one. And this is like maybe my 20th book on the Enneagram. So grab an Enneagram book, read it. Again, like, you got to get into your feelings though. You can't read it and say, that's me. So much more to it. Listen to some podcasts, and especially listen to some podcasts about the number or numbers that you think that you are. Like, there's a lot of them that will interview like a type 3. See, like, do you act like that person? Do you sound like that person? Do you kind of get off like that person, right? Like, so really listen to some people. Or if you know somebody who knows their type, do you act like them? Or are you nothing like them? Do you have the same motivations as they do? So 3 that I like are the one by Susan Stabile. There's one called The Art of Growth, and there's one called The Enneagram in Real Life. So many resources out there. Some ebooks. I wouldn't base it on the Instagram, like little graphics that people do. I do those too, but I mean, that's just not a great way to type yourself. The next, I already said, try it on, like try on a type. And then finally, if you're a believer, I would suggest meditating and praying about it, like really that you would be able to figure out what your motivations are, because that's really key. And this has the potential to really impact your relationships in a positive way. So praying about that is always a good idea, journaling, meditating. And then finally, I would suggest highly, if you're really wanting to know your type and you really want to really work on becoming the most optimal version of yourself that you can be, I would suggest talking to a coach. Now, there's lots of coaches out there. Would I love to talk to you? Yes, I'd love to talk to you. And you can go to my website, JustineLaser.com, and you can see what I offer. But here's the thing. What I would do is you pick your session or your pack that you'd like to do, and then I send you a typing assessment, and you get that in your inbox, and you take that assessment, and it is the best assessment that's out there. That's part of your coaching, and then we go over the results of that, and then we go even more in depth to make sure that we know minimum between 2 numbers after our first session, preferably that we have figured it out. But every once in a while somebody's a little bit complicated, and that's okay. Complicated is good. I love complicated. And we'll figure out what type you are so that you can then move forward, know what your weaknesses are, know what your motivations are, know what your fears are, and how they impact your relationships, and how you can move forward in the healthiest way so that you can live a life that is a little bit less stressful for you. So if this was impactful for you, if you got some value from this, drop down value below. I'd love to hear that. I already gave you my website a couple times. You can also DM me I'm here on Facebook. DM me if you have any questions. And let's get you figured out, and let's figure out what number you are, what type you are, and how we can move forward with that. And if this is something that interests you, feel free to share this on your wall or tag somebody who maybe this might interest. And I always love referrals, so send them my way. And if you're not part of my Facebook group, drop the word group down below and I'll be sure to add you. So have a great night, and I'll be back with you again later this week.